Welcome everybody to the limited formal meeting. We're starting at a few minutes after 7 p.m. If you're just tuning in, welcome to those online. We are happy to have you here joining us today, whether you're online or in person. We are now convening a limited formal meeting, which means this is not a standard formal meeting agenda. Tonight, which we're going to continue after this meeting is over. Tonight, the council needs to consider an action on the as the final step in the annual budget process for the city truth in taxation hearing, a public hearing required by state law. A truth in taxation hearing happens when any of the following take place. The city raises property taxes, property tax stabilization, or a judgment levy. This year, the city used all three of those tools. Although the hearing is a formal step required by the state, the council is always interested in hearing from the public. Feedback from the public helps the council make decisions in future budgets or even amendments to this year's budget. However, if you have received your property tax assessment and wish to protest, please contact the Salt Lake County or visit its appeals webpage. Now we're going to move to item 2, welcome the public meeting rules. If you would like to give public comment today, we are accepting comments in person and online and via telephone line. Before we begin moving through the agenda, I want to mention and review our rules of decorum. The City Council has always had guidelines in place to ensure our meetings are orderly, civil, and efficient. The guidelines help everybody feel comfortable sharing their comments without feeling intimidated. To achieve these, rules of decorum take effect the moment you arrive. We respect all points of view and welcome your new insights. Please be respectful while sharing your comments. Avoid yelling, using profanity, making racial slurs or obscene or defamatory remarks. If you violate these rules, we'll mute your line and ask you to stop. If you feel the need to use such language to express your opinion, you might email council members or leave a message on our 24-hour comment line. Additionally, our staff will request your name during the WebEx registration process. To limit disruption, your name cannot include a message or violate our rules of decorum. If your name doesn't comply, our staff will let you know. For those joining through WebEx, please watch your chat window in case we try to reach you. Scott Corpany from our staff will moderate our WebEx and will message you with any questions about your registration. Staff is handling many tasks, so please limit messages to technical issues and minimal information updates. If you would like to send any comments, feel free to mail using the mail through P.O. Box 145476, Salt Lake City, Utah 84114. You can also email us at council.comments@slcgov.com, or you can call us 801-535-7654. Now we will begin our Truth in Taxation public hearing for fiscal year 2022-2023. Taylor Hill and our staff will be calling the names of those who wish to comment. We'll call the names of people on WebEx and in person based on the order of registration or when we receive the card. Once we open public comment, Taylor will announce 3 names at a time so people can have some notice and be prepared to speak. When it's your turn to speak, Taylor will announce your name, and if you are in WebEx, your line will unmute and you may begin. If you are here in person, please step up to the podium and make your comment once Taylor announces your name. To begin, please state your name and your 2-minute timer will start. At the 2-minute mark, staff will announce time. If you are unable to finish your comment, please send us the rest via email, mail, or through calling our office. Our contact information is available in our meeting room and in the chat and through WebEx. If you no longer wish to speak, please either message our staff or when staff states your name, let us know when we're here to listen. that you're here just to listen. Now we are going to be discussing. We're going to start taking comments. The first, we're going to turn the time to Jen Bruno, Council Staff Policy Analyst, to give us a short introduction on the item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You covered some of the basics already in your intro, but maybe I'll just reiterate that this is a state-required process, which is triggered by the city and library budgets that were adopted by the council in June. Public hearings on those overall budgets were held in May and June of this year, and those were public hearings on the overall budgets. This is a separate public hearing required by state law that focuses on the revenue that's proposed to be received by the city, which is why it's focused only on the property tax line item proposed by the city for both the city and the library. Just for general public information, city departments were discussed in detail at each of the council's work sessions in May through June, and recordings of those discussions are available online on the council's websites, as are the staff analysis of each department. More information on that can be found at tinyurl.com/SLCFY23. Just as a piece of information, because of a noticing issue on one piece of the advertising required by state law, staff is recommending that the council continue the public hearing tonight rather than adopt. Just to rectify that noticing issue. We're recommending that you continue to August 29th at 6 p.m. so that that noticing issue can be addressed. So that's it.
Thank you, Jen. Taylor, please start with our first public comment.
Thank you, Council Chair. It looks like there are 8 people here to speak. The first will be Michael Hughes, followed by George Chapman, and then Dave Alderman. Michael is in person to speak.
Thank you.
Hello, council members. My name is Michael Hughes. I'm a Salt Lake resident since 1998, member volunteer of the Avenues Community Council Board, and a member volunteer of the Friends of the Salt Lake City Cemetery Board. I'm speaking in support of any use of general obligation bond funds or sales tax funds or bonds in support of city streets, especially cemetery streets, which really need some help, and any other infrastructure projects in the cemetery. Thank you for all your efforts.
Thank you.
Next, we will hear from George Chapman, followed by Dave Alderman, and then Bob Barr. George, you are unmuted.
Okay, I'm against the proposed tax increase since the federal pandemic funds have significantly increased city spending. Specifically, Utah has a food tax that all of you on the council have argued against. Removing the food tax for a typical person who buys $300 worth of grocery a week would save $273 annually. So I hope you understand that your arguments against the food tax are actually the best arguments against this property tax increase. Not just hypocritical and disrespectful, but also unequitable due to the lack of increased circuit breaker. So the poorest homeowners are most impacted by a tax increase. You want a city where everyone can live affordably? That was in your presentation this afternoon. Remember? Those are you. But if you pass this tax increase, you're flushing that claim down the toilet. You don't have an effective way to keep lower income or fixed income citizens in their home. You're going to be effectively requiring all homeowners to be rich, and you're pushing lower income people into apartments, which will make them poor. So despite studies that you have agreed with that show that mixed income communities are best at ensuring an equitable and respectful citizenry, you're throwing that out the window. I urge you to close the public hearing and vote against the food tax. Obviously, you're going to continue it. And again, encouraging public engagement with web phone options. It's actually very, very right now. Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Next, we will hear from Dave Alderman, followed by Bob Barr, and then John Gardner. Dave is in person to speak.
Good evening. My name is Dave Alderman, and I'm here to support the proposed budget and the GO and sales tax bonds, but even more specifically in support of the Salt Lake City Cemetery. I'm the current president of the Friends of the Salt Lake Cemetery, an all-volunteer nonprofit organization formed to help support the cemetery by organizing community engagement activities such as the recent post-Memorial Day cleanup that drew 200 volunteers, and fundraising for non-infrastructure items such as trees, benches, and signage. But more importantly, I'm a resident of Salt Lake City. During the 10 years I've been here, the value of my house has increased beyond any reasonable expectation. But my property taxes have remained flat. So thank you and your predecessors for doing a good job in keeping our taxes low. We appreciate that. However, I participated in the CIP process this year for some repairs at the cemetery, and many, if not most, of the constituent-initiated projects for public lands were also repairs for needed existing parks and facilities. Keeping our taxes low does put a burden on the parks that we all enjoy. In late 2020, the City Council approved the master plan for the cemetery, which identified tens of millions of dollars of needed upgrades. The cemetery is the largest municipal cemetery in the country. It's a unique cultural and historical resource, and as well as a vital open space in our area. But funding is necessary to maintain the resource now and into the future. Bonding for the upgrades seems to be the most fiscally prudent way to accomplish these needs for the cemetery as well as for the other parks and areas. To summarize, I'll quote from the late Mark Smith, the former sexton after whom the cemetery's arboretum is named. The Salt Lake City Cemetery is not just a resting place for the dead, nor solely a historic site. The cemetery is one of Salt Lake City's most significant green spaces, open to the public 365 days a year, free of charge.
Aye.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you, Dave.
Next will be Bob Barr, followed by John Gardner, and then Matthew C. Bob is here in person to speak.
Hi, my name is Bob Barr. I'm surprised the mayor didn't flinch when I was announced. I understand I've been a subject of conversation at various meetings. I guess I was here to ask some questions. One question that I would like to ask is, why does the city not publish a detailed format, its budget for all offices and all expenses made during a year? My second, I guess, comment would be that before taking on new tasks for the city, I would suggest it might be worthwhile to actually fulfill the ones that have been around for decades. I happen to live in 84108, Dan Dugan's area. I have lived there my entire adult life, 4 different homes in that area. The street I live on now has been scheduled to be repaved over 25 years ago. It has never been done. I just retired from a job where what I did was drive all around all day long. Within a mile of my house, which interestingly enough is the most highly valued homes in the city, therefore the most taxes, we have the worst roads by an enormous factor. Is that it?
Thank you, Bob.
Next will be John Gardner, followed by Matthew C. and then Jessica C. John, you're unmuted.
My name is John Gardner. I live in Salt Lake City in the 84108 district, and I own and operate a small family-owned real estate development company in Salt Lake City. Our company was one of the first people to build housing in the Sugar House area. We own 3 apartment projects, 2 in Sugar House and 1 downtown. I was shocked when I opened the tax notice this year to find out that for one project, I have a $37,000 a year tax increase, the second one, $29,000, and the third project, $19,000 tax increase. That's an $85,000 per year tax increase. This is an enormous burden for our business. It's incomprehensible that a city and a county would impose this type of increase in 1 year. Part of the increase is a tax rate adjustment. Part of it is a valuation adjustment. By increasing the tax rate, you are doing it at the wrong time because we're all suffering a valuation increase. It's also foolish to do this because you're adding gas to the inflation fire. We need your help, not more inflation. And I guess the really sad part of this is that I have no choice but to pass this on to our renters. We care about our renters. We try to keep our rents reasonable. There's a limit as to what we can do. In this case, we're going to pass it along to the renters and tell them that Salt Lake City is demanding more money, therefore we have to raise your rent. Please don't talk to us about affordable housing. This is making housing much more unaffordable. Thank you very much.
Next, we'll hear from Matthew C., followed by Jessica C., and then Jan Hayes. Matthew is in person to speak.
Hi, my name is Matthew, and I want to speak against the proposed tax hike. The city speaks a lot about affordability, and I work for a developer that builds affordable housing. We just built an affordable housing complex at Kimball Junction, and we have a proposal in front of Park City to build 180 units. With that said, I've also sent a proposal to you guys on ideas I have in this city, but I don't think you guys are genuine in your sayings about affordability, because what this tax says is that you guys support gentrification. The definition of gentrification is the process whereby the character of an area is changed by wealthier people moving in, typically displacing current inhabitants. That's what's happening on my street, on Blaine Avenue in Sugar House. I don't recognize my neighborhood anymore. I bought my house a couple years after I graduated from college, and I met my wife in church at our singles ward, and now we're raising our daughter. And I'm facing the dilemma of having to move because this proposed tax hike now makes my property taxes the equivalent of just more than 2 of my mortgage payments. Now, that may not mean anything to you guys, but that means a lot to me. And it is very difficult for people like us who can't just go to our neighbors and say, hey, give me more money. Unfortunately, I have to budget my own money, unlike the city. And I have to deal with the amounts that I've been given. And while my property taxes have tripled since I purchased my property, that means nothing. It's just on paper. But what it does mean is that I now have to make the decision on whether or not I can afford to stay in my first home that I've completely gutted and renovated and put my blood, sweat, and tears into. In addition to that, in my budgeting, I have to account for unexpected expenses living in a home from the 50s. I have to budget for my new child. These aren't things that I can just reach out and increase my amount on. I don't recognize my street anymore. There was a billboard near the point of the mountain, and it said, if you want to become a millionaire, sell your house to a Californian. And that's what Salt Lake City's becoming. There's been a lot in the news about gentrification, and we want to focus on the brown and black people, but it's happening to everyone, whether it's in Sugar House or in West Valley. And your guys' policies are 100% related. There's a direct correlation to that. If you vote to do this, you're voting for gentrification.
Thank you.
Next will be Jessica C., followed by Jan Hayes. Jessica is in person to speak.
Hi, my name is Jessica and this is Ellie. I do not support the tax rate increase. As a young family, we're living in our first home and we have just tried to make it a beautiful place to live and to really bring up our neighborhood. And now Salt Lake has become unaffordable and we might have to move. And that just breaks my heart because we love this city and this tax rate increase is not fair to homeowners like us. We just really can't handle this. Like my husband said, the increase is equivalent to 2 months of our mortgage. That's not realistic for us. We're not able to afford that. And this tax rate increase isn't only hurting young families like us, it's hurting everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
And next will be Jan Hayes. Jan, you are unmuted. I will message with Jan real quick and see if we can figure that out.
Is that our last comment?
Yes.
Let's wait 30 seconds and see if communicate. Jen?
Okay, Jan just messaged me and let me know that she left a message instead. So.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everybody who made a comment. Looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council continue the public hearing to August 29th at 6 p.m.
Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan and a second by Councilmember Wharton. Is there any discussion on this item? I would like to just mention that there is a link to the whole budget, the 300 plus pages on the budget. It's been available for months now. tinyurl.com/SLCFY 2022 budget. If you have any questions about how to access in that link.
No, the last part,
23 budget. Sorry about that. And if you have questions about finding this link, please let us help you find the link. There is a lot of very good information there. I'm going to call the question. Councilmember Wharton?
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan?
Yes.
Councilmember Mano?
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros?
yes.
Councilmember Petro Eschler?
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler? Councilmember Fowler, are you there?
Councilmember Fowler is not online.
I am a yes, and with Councilmember Fowler absent, this motion passes. This concludes our limited formal city council meeting, and now we stand adjourned for that meeting. Now we're going to move to the regular formal meeting that we took a pause for.
Excuse me, Council Chair. It is a different WebEx link to
Okay.
return to the formal.
So
Could
we're
we have
going to
5 minutes?
come back in a few minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.